Ladies and gentlemen, a recent study came out that is saying that most young men, especially the ones in their 20s, are more likely to be single. And most young women in that same age range are not. But you know what, y'all? Things have changed dramatically just over the last few decades. When I was coming up, see, we didn't have the internet. That didn't come until much later. And so we were a lot more social. We would hang out with each other, go to each other's houses. We would, the only technology we were using really was a telephone, to call each other. But we were a lot more social than young people are today. A lot of young people today are relying more heavily on the internet to communicate with each other, using your cell phones to communicate with each other, and it was nothing like that when I was coming up. So, because we were more social back then, you saw more couples and you saw more weddings. Look, I live near three churches. Back when I was a teenager, there were weddings at these churches virtually every week. You would see wedding parties, limousines going down the road virtually every single week. And I'm not exaggerating. This is every week. There was somebody getting married or some type of wedding at one or sometimes all three churches. It was very common to hear the horns blowing and a wedding party coming down the road. Now you can go by these same three churches, and these churches are still active. And all three churches got their doors closed on a Saturday. And it was nothing like that. Even 20, 30 years ago, it was nothing like that. And I think the internet has been good in some ways. And I think it really has taken its toll on relationships. I mean, you always had men talking crap about women and women talking crap about men. But I think what we see today, it is far, far worse. It is far worse. So let's get into this story that just came out today. More than 60% of young men are single, nearly twice the rate of unattached young women, signaling a larger breakdown in social, romantic, and sexual life in the American male. Men in their 20s are more likely than women in their 20s to be romantically uninvolved, sexually dormant, friendless, and lonely. They stand at the vanguard of an epidemic of declining marriages. And that goes back to what I was saying. These churches are not active on the weekends like they used to be. So I definitely see the declining marriages. And they're saying even intimacy and also relationships that afflict all of young America. We're in a crisis of connection. So, Niobe Way, a psychologist, professor, and founder of the Project for the Advancement of Our Common Humanity at New York University, disconnection from ourselves and disconnection from each other. And it's getting worse. In the worst case scenario, the young American man social disconnect can have tragic circumstances. So, young men commit suicide four times the rate of young women. Younger men are largely responsible for the rising rates of what they're calling the mass shootings. Well, we know that, and we know which men are doing that. A trend some researchers link to their growing social isolation. Societal changes that began in the Eisenhower years have eroded. The patriarchy that once ruled the American home, classroom, and workplace. Women now collect nearly 60% of the bachelor's degrees. Men still earn more, but among the youngest adults, an income gap narrowed to $43 a week. So, scholars say in the new era of gender parity has reshaped relationship dynamics. Yes, it has. Yes, it has. I mean, a lot has changed out here. Like the way y'all interact with each other on social media and y'all talk to each other. We didn't do all of that. When we needed to talk, we either picked up the phone or met each other face to face. I mean, that's how it was done. But now the technology, to me, it's when it comes down to communication, I don't think it's always good, for friendships and even relationships. I don't think it's always good. So they're saying that scholars say in the new era, gender parity, reshape relationship dynamics, empowering young women, and in many cases, removing men from the equation. Women don't need to be in long term relationships. Yeah. But you know why? Because women today have been taught to focus on education and careers. And see, this is an America problem because one thing about America now, see, because, there are populations out here with low birth rate. Now they're whining that there aren't a bunch of babies and they're overturning Roe v. Wade. But see, if America would have propped up the family a lot more, you would have had less of a problem. But America don't prop up the family. America concerns itself with money. And money can only get you so far. When you don't have good social skills, which I mean, I'm not trying to insult nobody, but the social skills you young people got out here is far different from the social skills we had. It is really like day and night. It really is. And I can see it is taking a toll. And like like I said, you have this big gender war. We used to talk crap about each other, but not at the levels that I see online. It is very extreme when I look at it on the internet. It is extreme. And when you see all of the videos out here, we didn't do that. We did not do that to each other. That's why, you will occasionally hear me tell you, I don't want that over here. I really truly don't. I mean, there are differences. There are biological differences. There's difference in strength. There's differences in even the way our brains are wired. But we never let those differences get to the point where we were just on videos, just trashing the hell out of each other. We didn't do that. We took it only so far, you know? But to me, today, with the internet, that is way magnified now. I just can't believe the levels that I see so many young people go to just to insult and even hurt each other. I'm just telling y'all, is way worse now than when I was coming up. I mean, yes, we would hurt each other, but y'all take it to the ultimate level, and I just don't see why, if things aren't working out with one person, then you just let it go and you move on. This is why I don't understand about black men and women. When y'all hook up with people of other races, why do you continue to trash your own community? You moved on to someone else. Move on. What's all this yapping is about? Move on. I just don't understand why you got to keep coming back and insulting each other. But that's what y'all do. We didn't do that. We didn't do it. We sure didn't do it at the level that I'm looking at. So, in recent years, we have seen a historic rise in unpartnered Americans, particularly among the young. The pandemic has made things worse. Yeah. Well, when you were locked down, you didn't have a lot of options. But as of 2022, Pew Research Center found that 30% of US adults are neither married, living with a partner, nor engaged in a committed relationship. And they're finding the majority of the ones that are not in relationships are men. And they're saying nearly half of young adults are single. 34% are women, and a whopping 63% are men. Now, I do realize some people choose to be single. They don't want to be tied down with people, but that's not with everybody. That's not, and another thing, how some people are calling these young guys that really have no good social skills, so they can't get women, incels. Nobody was called an incel back back when I was coming up. Nobody was called no incel. I mean, that's really pretty recent. Not surprisingly, the decline in relationship marches astride with a decline in, intimacy. So they said couples that were intimate, had active lives, is at a 30-year low. Around 30% of young men reported in 2019 that they had no partner, compared to 20% of the women. Only half of the single men were actively seeking relationships or even in a casual relationship, according to Pew. The figure is declining. You have to think that the pandemic had an impact on some of those numbers. Young men are watching a lot of social media, and they're watching a lot of porn, and they're getting a lot of their needs met without having to go out. And I think it's starting to become a habit. Even seasoned researchers struggle to fully account for the relationship gap between young men and young women. If single young men outnumber single young women nearly 2 to 1, then we are all, the young women then who are all the young women dating? That's the thing. See, these women, the reason why more women, young women, are likely to be in relationships than young men is because a lot of the Generation Z that's out here are in relationships with men. Some of these women are bisexual, and some are part of LGBTQ, which is also bisexual is also part of LGBTQ. But I'm just saying the women are more likely to go beyond dating men than the men are willing to do that. But men are still out here in large numbers in these gay relationships too. But They said that's why so many of the women are not single like the men are. So they're saying one fifth of Generation Z identifies as queer, and the research shows that bisexual women make up a large share of the young adult community. Young women are also dating and marrying slightly older men and carrying on the tradition that stretches back more than a century. So they're saying a lot of young women today are dating older men than even women back in my time. So that has gone beyond what you see today. So it seems like the women are exercising more um, different types of relationships out here than the men are. So let me go back to that. So young women are also dating and marrying slightly older men and carrying on the tradition that stretches back more than a century. The average age of marriage is around 30 for men and 28. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that is according to the recent census. So they also notice a pattern of heterosexual women that have become more choosy, and they don't want to marry down. They don't want a less educated man or a man that earns less than herself. Where previous generations, society always expected a woman to marry a financially stable man who would support them through decades of marriage and motherhood. Over the 50s and 60s, that pattern gradually broke down. And they're saying today it's far less of that you see, but that still does exist. I mean, there are men that still take care of and support their women and children. That's still out here. So women are tiring of the stereotypical role as the full-time therapist for emotionally distant men. They want a partner who is emotionally open and empathetic, and opposite of the age-old masculinity ideal. Oh, maybe they are. Today in America, women expect more from men. And unfortunately, so many men don't have more to give. The same emotional deficits that hurt men in the dating pool also hamper them from forming meaningful friendships. 15% of men report having no close relationships, a fivefold increase from the 1990s, according to research from the Survey Center on American Life. Men are less naturally relational than women. Yeah, in a sense, it is. No, one thing about women, we are very social. You can even see that on jobs. If you work on the job, every day, you'll see women more heavily interacting with each other on that job than you will see men. Now, men do interact, but I think it's like a whole different level from women communicating back and forth. And believe me, I've been out in corporate America. All the communication between the women are not good. Some is good and some is not good at all. Um, all right. So Richard Reeves, a senior fellow at Brookings Institute, he points to recent Saturday Night Live sketches that reimage the neighborhood dog park, where it's a man park, poking fun at this, they're saying at this whole relationship thing. They're calling it a man park because, these men are all gathered together and they're all single. So social circles have been shrinking for men and women, especially since the pandemic, but men struggle more. 30 years ago, 55% of men reported having six or more close friends. By 2021, that share had slipped to 27%. Women form friendships with each other that are emotionally intimate, whereas men do not, Levant said. Young women may not be dating, but they have girlfriends they spend time with and gain emotional support from. Aaron Caro and Matt Ritter, both in their 40s, studied the male friendship recession in their Man of the Year podcast. It arose out of an annual tradition of gathering at a steakhouse with several male friends, all close since elementary school. The guys were taught one pattern they noticed among each other when they would gather together. The guys were taught to prioritize a career first. And, I think that is the root cause of the breakdown of the family because generations before, and even when you look at ancient history, families were heavily pushed and elevated. In this society, because they focus so much on capitalism, they put career and money first. So if you put career and money first and you don't focus on day-to-day relationships between men and women, of course that's going to fall by the wayside because now it's not about the relationship, it's about what you have or what you don't have. And that now has the most highest priority out of everything. And that really is not a natural thing. That's pretty artificial, to be honest with y'all. That's an artificial phenomena. And because it's artificial, that's why you see so much breakdown between men and women. I think if America would have pushed the family, push more emphasis on families getting together and having families and doing things as a family in this society, if they would have elevated that more, I think you would see less of this conflict out here. And yeah, I do blame America for a lot of this and the people in charge and the things they choose to promote. When you turn on your TV, they don't promote a lot of things that the average person should be seeing. They don't. They try to emphasize on, oh, these women over here, that is what you should strive to have. No, it isn't. Says who? Says who? Or oh, you should be like these guys over here. Says who? I mean, look at how some of these people act. Do you really want to be like them? I sure don't. I don't see nothing appealing. So I think that has a lot to do with it too. And then you have a lot of the movies that come out in America. The movies are, it's more killing in the movies than really good relationships, because people want to see those high action movies. It minus, when you see those movies, it completely eliminates the family altogether. And that's another thing that is just not projected in this society is being together. It is just not. And then they want to know why numbers are sinking in so many different areas when it comes down to relationships. America has done a poor job in promoting good, healthy, solid relationships. They get an F. And in fact, when it comes down to social skills, America gets an F. All right. So, like I said, the guys, one thing they had in common was prioritizing a career, Carl said. Also, romantic relationships, although it doesn't seem like they're doing a very good job at that, making friends and keeping friends seems to be a lower priority. And once guys get older, they suddenly realize they don't really have that many friends. So the podcaster and their friends created an annual gathering as a way to keep their friendship alive. It spawned a year round group chat and a Man of the Year trophy awarded to the most deserving friend at the annual dinner. We treat friendship as a luxury, especially men, Ritter said. It is a necessity. So, y'all tell me what you think. Just tell me what you think about this whole thing. It's interesting that something like that has come out because things have been emphasized very different in this society. But I can tell you, just in my family, I can only talk like among my cousins. My young cousins are single at an age where I was married. And I notice a lot of them are a lot, well, sometimes a whole decade beyond the age when I got married, you know? But I do notice it within my family. I notice there are more single men than back in my time within my family. When most of us reached our 20s and 30s, the majority of my cousins were married. Where now I got cousins in their 20s and 30s and they're not married. They're not married around that same age bracket of when, people like myself was coming up. But y'all, please tell me what you think about this story. This is not a snipe at anybody. This is just the recent study that came out from Pew Research. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.